The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Drivers, start your engines. Pull those belts down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. Nascar, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here is your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
Yeah, we got video back this week because, well, we're all back in studio. Kind of cool to actually have everybody back in the same room again. And before this show is over, by the way, producer John and I are going to be putting Matt into the interrogation room, shining a really bright spotlight directly into his eyes, and find out just what the heck he was doing last weekend anyway. Before that, not just one, but two mid-season driver changes have been made. We'll talk about those. Got a major sponsor switching not only drivers, but teams for 2024. Got some cool stuff coming to a museum. And if you haven't ever been there, this is a must visit for racing fans. 2024 Hall of Fame for NASCAR. The nominees have been announced. We'll go over them. And we got more commentary on the potential of an 11th team in Formula One. I'll give you one guess as to whether that's positive or negative. It's from Toto Wolff of Mercedes. All that and more when we drop the green on this week's edition of CRN.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. On the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, just underway here on this edition of CRN. I'm Steve West. That's Matt Nicholson.
Hi.
In studio.
Hi.
Very cool. And producer John is back behind the controls.
Yo.
So that means that this show should run better than last week. You all right over there?
I'm just Andy.
Okay. I was just checking. You were adjusting. Microphone. Was it about to fall off?
Yeah, I hate it when it flops around.
Yeah.
Makes all kinds of noise in the background.
That it does. All right, here we go. Let's get into it because there's a lot of racing to talk about and a recap from last weekend. We'll start at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Foreshadowing. Matt was in a tryout. More on that later.
Hint.
Craftsman Truck Series was raining. Yeah, it was raining to begin with. Then the rain stopped. Track dried, led to a strategy play of when to switch from wet tires to racing slicks and who could stay in control in all of that. At the end, leading the field was the driver who was leading at the beginning, pole sitter Corey Heim. In between, craziness. Wrecking, getting beached, spinning, all that kind of good stuff. Heim claims win number 2 on the year, trailed by Zane Smith, Christian Eckes, Stuart Friesen, Ben Rhodes, Matt Crafton, who had to start way back at the tail end of the field, so nice recovery for him. Ty Majeski, Matt DiBenedetto, Nick Sanchez, Tyler Ankrum making up the top 10. Heim is your 1 seed in the Truck Series as we look ahead to the playoffs, which are looming large on the calendar now. Joined at that level of 2 wins by Zane Smith, Grant Enfinger, Christian Eckes, and Carson Hocevar. You got Ben Rhodes in there with his single win. They are all locked in. Those that are in on points, Ty Majeski, Matt DiBenedetto, Nick Sanchez, Matt Crafton, he ekes his way in. He's in by 1 single point over Stuart Friesen. Nobody would call that comfortable.
No, not at all.
Guess we'll see what happens here over the next couple of races. Saturday night, down to Atlanta, under the lights, Xfinity Series raced. As the old saying goes, doesn't matter how many laps you lead, as long as you're leading the last one. That was pretty much the story for John Hunter Nemechek. He took the lead on the overtime restart, got his 3rd win of the year so far. Team worked on his car all day. He said that car was ill handling, to borrow a phrase that, well, let's just say it was edited from what John Hunter Nemechek said.
Yeah.
And by the end of the race, obviously, it was good enough just to get past Daniel Hemrick for the win. Cole Custer 3rd. That's his 11th top 10 finish in a row. Nice little hot streak for him. Justin Haley, Sam Mayer, Ty Gibbs, Kyle Sieg, Parker Kligerman, Josh Williams, and Sammy Smith making up the top 10 there. With 3 wins on the year, John Hunter Nemechek is right now your 1 seed in the Xfinity Series playoffs, tied with Austin Hill at 3 wins. Cole Custer's got 2. Then you got single wins for Justin Allgaier, Chandler Smith, and Sammy Smith. By the way, again, not related. Just want to make sure for those who are new listeners to the show. And then Jeb Burton's locked in with a win as well. As for those who are in on points, Josh Berry, in what will, at least for now, be his final year in Xfinity full-time competition, leads on points. No wins yet this year for him. Then Sam Mayer, Daniel Hemrick, Sheldon Creed, Riley Erbst, who started the year like a house on fire but has since cooled off. He's holding on to the final playoff position, but he's hanging on by a fingernail or 2, a slim 6 points over Parker Kligerman. So kind of like Matt Crafton, not exactly the most comfortable seat to be in.
Nope.
Speaking of comfortable, sitting on a throne full of mattresses and really, really puffy pillows is 2-time defending champion Max Verstappen. Sunday morning in England, it was time for Formula One to take the center stage. It's becoming less a question of who's going to win a race, but who's going to finish where behind the 2-time defending champion Max Verstappen. Verstappen claimed the pole, joined on the front row by somewhat surprising Lando Norris. Norris actually got the better of Verstappen off of the standing start, but Verstappen regrouped by lap 5. He'd reclaimed the lead. He rolls onto the win. Although admittedly closer than Verstappen probably would have liked, a slim, at least for Formula One, 3.8 second gap at the checkers. Norris finishes 2nd with fellow Brit Sir Lewis Hamilton 3rd on a podium I cannot remember announcing ever that particular trio.
Same here.
And for the home people in Great Britain at Silverstone, 2 of the 3 Brits. Pretty happy about that one.
As Michael Caine says in Austin Powers, the bloody Dutch.
Yeah. Oscar Piastri in the 2nd McLaren actually finished 4th. Yeah, McLaren found something, or at least for Britain. Then George Russell in the other Mercedes, Sergio Perez, Fernando Alonso, Alex Albon up there with a top 10 for Williams. Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz. 6th win in a row for Max Verstappen. 8th win in the 10 races so far in 2023. This is Max Verstappen's first ever win in the British Grand Prix, though. Okay. The 3-time champion in waiting holds a 99-point lead over Sergio Perez, his teammate, who's 2nd in the standings. The gap 255 to 156. Fernando Alonso's next with 137. Lewis Hamilton sits at 121. So the battle really is kind of second, third, maybe fourth if Mercedes can find something. Can't guarantee that. 83 points for Carlos Sainz. Then George Russell, Charles Leclerc, Lance Stroll, Lando Norris, and Esteban Ocon fill out the top 10 in points. Everything else is so far back, it's ridiculous. Speaking of ridiculous, 2023 Constructors' Cup champion-elect Red Bull. 10 races into the year. We're not even halfway through the schedule.
This is nuts.
Ridiculous. 208-point lead over Mercedes already. 411 to 203. Good grief. Aston Martin is third with 181. Ferrari next, 157. McLaren's up to fifth. They got 59. Alpine at 47. Williams and Haas F1 in a flat-footed tie at 11 points each. Alfa Romeo's got 9. And we'll get to AlphaTauri later in the program. They're still hanging in there with a lowly 2, but they think there's a light at the end of the tunnel. They're just hoping it's not a train coming at them.
Mm-hmm.
Final race of last weekend, Cup Series in Atlanta in the summer. There's a reason why they call it Hot Atlanta. It gets hot. Real hot in Atlanta in July.
Uh-huh.
So NASCAR made the rare move of deciding to do a late afternoon into the evening race. But in the southeastern part of the United States, always a chance of rain or pop-up thunderstorms. Foreshadowing anybody? The race did make it to the official length as opposed to the Xfinity Series race on the Chicago Street Course the week before. It's when NASCAR brought the field down to pit road to rain when it began to fall. The weather nerd types in the NASCAR front office began to look at it. They decided it didn't look good, so they called it all on lap 185 or shortly into the third stage. And the man who was out front when it was called, William Byron. William Byron now has his series-leading fourth win of the year, being in the right place at the right time and ending a Trackhouse Racing 2-race win streak that fell just so short of 3 in a row as Daniel Suarez, the third Trackhouse Racing driver, the one who did not have a win after Ross Chastain and the road course, I should say street course expert in Shane Van Gisbergen, claimed wins. Daniel Suarez had to settle for second. A.J. Allmendinger third, Michael McDowell, Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, J.J. Yella, Justin Haley, Ryan Blaney, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in a somewhat odd top 10. But how many times have we said you get a rain-shortened race, you get an odd top 10?
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you see that correctly. There was a Rick Ware car that finished in the top 10.
J.J. Yaley. Wow. William Byron, here's your 1 seed. He's got 4 wins. 3 wins for Kyle Busch. Martin Truex Jr. and Kyle Larson each hold 2. 1 win apiece for these drivers, including Christopher Bell, Ross Chastain, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, Tyler Reddick, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. For those who are in on points, leading the way, fairly comfortably inside that particular situation, is Kevin Harvick in his final year in Cup Series competition. Chris Buescher's in there, and then things get a little bit tighter after Buescher and Brad Keselowski, the RFK teammates, tied there. Then you got Daniel Suarez and Michael McDowell. They both vault into the top 16. They are tied at a slim 3 points to the good over Bubba Wallace, who's just barely on the outside looking in.
Just a bit outside.
Yeah, if he'd have drove a little bit more with his head screwed on, he'd be in the top 10.
Yeah,
the top 16.
well, there's that.
Yeah.
So that's last weekend, but here's the thing. We ain't exactly done. And here's the thing. It's not exactly like trying to revive Ted Williams from the cryo freeze, but hey, SRX and ESPN have revived the long dormant Thursday Night Thunder. That's something to talk about. They began their 3rd season of racing in the SRX series at the same place where they began their inaugural season, Stafford Speedway in Connecticut. 2 20-lap heat races set the lineup. Time to get down to business. Denny Hamlin taking an early lead, while Cup Series team owner and driver Tony Stewart and Kevin Harvick had early problems, relegating them to 11th and 12th on the night. Other than several cars getting into a collective spin within the first 10 laps of the race, really it was a really clean race.
It fairly was, yeah.
Yeah, Hamlin, Clint Boyer started to pull away after the usual mid-race caution to bunch the field back together. Hamlin and Boyer, along with Ryan Newman, started to walk away from the field a little bit. Then Newman got past Boyer, who started to fade with less than 25 laps to go. But 19 to go. Weather that's been plaguing the Northeast in recent weeks led to the series to decide to wrap things up when a thunderstorm started to bear down on the track. Lightning caused them to have to put a hold on the racing and get the people out of the grandstands. That's become typical nowadays. And then they looked, and here comes the rain again. Thank you to Eurythmics. And there you go. It was over. Hamlin wins in his SRX debut. Ryan Newman second, Clint Boyer third, Paul Tracy, Haley Deegan in the top five, then Marco Andretti, your defending series champion, Ken Schrader, Bobby Labonte, Brad Keselowski, Tony Kanaan, and then, as I mentioned, the DNFs of Stewart and Harvick wrap up the 12. No local drivers this year. This was something I didn't find out until Thursday night. I was like, where's the local track driver?
Right.
And Matt told me they ain't doing one this year.
Nope.
What's up with that? Anyway, since the points pretty much mirror the finish, we're not going to get into the points chase until after race number 2. As for racing this weekend, it begins, or began, actually, already, in Italy. Formula One running the Hankook Rome E-Prix. They're on a 2.1-mile-long street course made up of 19 turns right in downtown in the historic city. CBS Sports Network's got the coverage. It actually began at 8:30 a.m. Eastern, 7:30 a.m. Central Time. In other words, about a half an hour before this show started. You got a quick update on how things are going over there?
They are currently right now on lap 4 of 25.
So they really just started.
Sam Birds and Mitch Evans are your leaders.
All right. We'll keep an eye on it as we go throughout the course of the morning here. Then later today, we go up to New England, hopefully, as the Xfinity Series will try to get in the Better Health 200 at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, airing on USA and PRN Radio, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time. Again, I say we hope, because, hey, guess what New England's getting more of this weekend?
Snow?
Close.
Yeah.
It's the frozen version of what they're actually going to get. They got more rain in the forecast. Sunday's racing will take us back to Italy to begin with. Second race of the Rome E-Prix doubleheader weekend. Same course, same network, same time. 8:30 a.m. Eastern, 7:30 a.m. Central Time, CBS Sports Network, if you are interested and actually can get that network. Indycar then goes north of the border. They're going to run the Honda Indy Grand Prix of Toronto on a street course carved out of that downtown area, made up of 11 turns over 1.78 miles. Only way to watch that is if you have the Peacock streaming service. No USA, no NBC. Nope, sorry, ain't going to happen. Or you could catch it on the IRN radio network, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Central Time. And then the Cup Series gets it going on with the Crayon 301, assuming Mother Nature cooperates, at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, USA and PRN Radio, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Central Time. I got to admit, I never thought I would say a race title sponsor of Crayon.
Neither did I.
Happy to have you on
Neither
board.
did I.
Thank you very much for coming in as a sponsor.
Yeah.
Final race of this weekend of the series that we cover is the NHRA's final ever run at Bandimere Speedway in Denver as we know it. We'll get back to that. Dodge Power Brokers NHRA Mile High Nationals will air on Fox, 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central Time. So the Craftsman Truck Series Formula One have this week on to off, but there's one more. That SRX series that we just talked about, remember them? They're running Thursday nights now. So for week 2, they were supposed to go from Stafford Speedway in Connecticut up right into the middle of what has been flooded out country. They were going to go to Bear, Vermont to run at Thunder Road Speed Bowl, airing on ESPN at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central Time. But that race will be for the second week in a row at Stafford Speedway due to those flooding issues in Bear, Vermont. And again, we'll return to this and kind of give you a little bit more detail on it when we get into the news from the Superstar Racing Experience. That's coming up a little bit later on. Again, producer John and I getting the chance to put Matt in the interrogation room and find out what in the world he actually was doing last weekend. We'll give you all the details on that. But when we come back, last weekend, there was actually so much news that I was not able to get to Formula E. So you know what? Even though they may not have had the biggest news of the week, that's where we're going to start when we come back. We'll give Formula E the airtime that they deserve right here next on CRN.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back into the show. All three of us in studio this week. Appreciate you joining us, whether you're joining us via the radio or via YouTube, where you can go and you can get all the visuals as well. Just go to YouTube and search CRN Live and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have, thank you, and please tell a friend.
And have them tell their friends.
That's right. And have them tell their friends, and so on, and so on, and so on. Yep, like I said, since we missed out on the news from Formula E last weekend, we're going to recognize them this weekend by giving them the leadoff slot, even though it maybe didn't have the biggest news of the week. Although they did do a mid-season driver change in Formula E, courtesy of Mahindra Racing. Yeah, their driver lineup, Oliver Rowland, for now still with the team, but he's been benched. The fill-in driver is Roberto Meri, who you can now see on CRN Live on YouTube. That picture courtesy of Sky Sports. Now, Meri has filled in for Rowland twice already, and now he's in that 8-car full-time, as the team confirmed he'll remain in that car the remainder of the year. He'll be teaming with Lucas Degrassi in the other number 11 car. The team has struggled this year. They're 9th in points with 33. It's the lowest score to this point in the season in Mahindra's history in Formula E. So they just decided, you know what, we're done. Let's fix it.
And right now, they're not much better.
How they doing?
He's 20th right now.
That's not good. How's his teammate, Lucas Degrassi?
Lucas is sitting P14.
So he's just on the outside of the points, wanting to get him. Okay.
Yep.
Formula E has fined the guy that you're seeing right now on CRN Live on YouTube, Jean-Eric Verne. Comments that he made to race stewards at the recent Portland E-Prix from a few weeks ago. His team was determined to have a quote-unquote huge and unfair advantage over the fellow competitors because apparently they not only had but used some RFID scanning equipment on pit lane during the practice before the race. After the decision by the race stewards to make the team start the race from the pits, Verne took to social media, stated that the scanners were there only to, quote, read the serial number of the tires in order for us to know what tires were being used by other teams. He goes on to say something any team can do and surely does by taking photos. All right. Driver. Taking pictures.
Yeah.
Actively scanning. Is there a difference?
Huge difference.
Care to elaborate?
Well, you can tell the difference between a scanner and a camera.
Number one,
easy. Two, it's, I guess you could say it's more like the unwritten gentleman's rule. Don't take pictures of my,
Yep.
whatever's on my car.
Sure.
Whether it be tires, suspension, springs,
I get it.
whatnot.
All the other teams want to know what all the other teams.
Yeah.
You know, if the three of us here at, we have Team CRN, we would certainly like to know what there are 11 teams currently in Formula E running.
Sure.
We would love to know what the other 11 teams are running tire-wise, but you know what we can do? I don't need to look at the serial numbers. I can tell you by the stripe that's on the tire.
Ding.
So what a scanner does, or what taking pictures does, not only, and correct me where I'm wrong, not only tells me what tires you're running, but it also gives me a really, really good look at your entirety of your car, because if you're better than I, now I know where I need to work on my car and get it fixed. Or am I wrong?
You're not wrong.
Thank you. Well, here's the thing. He didn't stop there. After the race, where he and his teammate Stoffel Van Dorn did recover and finished 11th and 12th, respectively, he went on to complain publicly again. Said that the ruling had been changed on the fly when it came to scanners and pictures, and the ruling removed all references to tires and simply stated that his team, DS Penske, was collecting live data from all competitors. Yeah.
Sure.
Kind of because you really were. Sorry.
Pretty much.
So he got himself a €3,000 fine and got suspended until the end of the season. But here's the kicker. Showing that he might have actually been on to something, maybe, they're probationary penalties. In other words, they're not set to take effect if he doesn't get into any more trouble.
Okay.
Here's the FIA statement regarding the decision. It said in part, quote, in the hearing, the driver stated that some of the written words in the press were not said by him. He agreed that some comments he did really say have not been respectful towards the stewards and also towards the FIA, but added that he does have the full respect for the work of the stewards and the FIA moving forward. So apparently he got down on his hands and knees and begged, and they said, okay, this will be a slap on the wrist unless you get into more trouble, and then we'll give you the $3,000 fine or €3,000 fine, and we'll suspend you for the rest of the year. But he's running this weekend.
Yeah.
So
much
really,
for a suspension.
Not in that much trouble at all, are you there, Jean-Eric Verne?
Not really.
Go
Not
ahead.
really.
Chat up a storm. Have a good time. Complain all you want. Apparently, it's all good. I'm sorry. I just, it boggles my mind to think, and I get it. Every team's looking for an edge. Every team wants to know what their other competitors are doing, especially if the competitors are better than they are. Why are you going to be so blatant as to use an RFID scanner?
I don't know, because if you use an RFID scanner, that's a dead giveaway. You're hunting something.
Gotta be.
You're hunting something.
But apparently that's not specifically against the rules in Formula One, because otherwise he might have gotten fined and suspended for that, and then the team too, one would think.
Yeah.
I guess the old phrase, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, comes into play here.
Bingo.
Okay. Let's turn to Formula One here, where we kind of buried the lead. The biggest news of the week actually is the latest example of Red Bull's notorious impatience. We noted during the recap, sister company AlphaTauri is severely underperforming to the point where they've only scored 2 championship points to this point in the year. Both of them scored by Yuki Tsunoda, while the rookie Formula One driver Nick DeVries hasn't even really come close to sniffing a top 10 this year in his first year, and, well, maybe his only year. So the picture that you're about to see up on CRN Live on YouTube, courtesy of planetsport.com, take a really good look at it, because that's certainly the last time you're going to see him in AlphaTauri gear, and it may be the last time you ever see him in Formula One gear.
And who is it?
That would be Nick DeVries. He's out. Gone. As of Wednesday of this week. Ousted from the second AlphaTauri car. Red Bull was actually using, or loaning, I should say, Daniel Ricciardo to AlphaTauri to have them do a tire test. A Pirelli tire test for the 2024 compound tires, or at least proposed 2024 compound tires at Silverstone. So, yeah, Ricciardo, even though he's a Red Bull driver, he was loaned to AlphaTauri to race. Well, Franz Tost, who is the team principal for AlphaTauri, said very little about DeVries, only praised Ricciardo by noting that he noted Ricciardo's speed in DeVries' car. So he called up the fine folks at the home office and said, hey, Daniel's a heck of a lot faster than Nick could be, and we need to think about maybe making a change. Okay. Boom. Gone is DeVries. In is Daniel Ricciardo. Toast said there's no doubt about his driving skills. He already knows many of us. His integration will be easy and straightforward. The team will also profit a lot from his experience. He's an 8-time Formula One Grand Prix winner. There's that 8-time Formula One Grand Prix winner right there on CRN Live on YouTube, courtesy of PressNet. As noted, Ricciardo has won 8 times in Formula One. 7 of those wins came at Red Bull before he joined Renault for a couple of seasons and then switched to McLaren for 2. But that was the ride that he lost at the end of last season, and he chose to take the reserve role back at Red Bull and kind of, in his way of looking at it, take most of this year off and then reevaluate. He did have an offer, for all intents and purposes, for a full-time ride from Haas F1. He turned him down, so Haas F1 went Nico Hülkenberg instead. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago that I mentioned the Williams fan vote for the paint scheme? I want to say it was 2 weeks ago.
It was 2, yeah. It was 2.
When they left it up to the fans to determine what paint scheme they were going to use in a few weeks, they gave you 4 choices. They chose it. And they've announced it. They're going to sport the look that you're about to see on CRN Live on YouTube, courtesy of Formula1.com. Later on this year, it'll be in 3 races: Singapore, Japan, and Qatar. The fan vote generated about 180,000 votes in all. The bolder than bold labeled look that you see right there is the one that won out over ones labeled as Heritage, Contemporary, and Visionary. The car is going to be shown in public this weekend at the prestigious Goodwood Festival of Speed in Britain before it starts to head out to race next weekend in Hungary, by the way, which will be the team's actual 800th race. There's actually going to be yet another look. So Williams is all about doing special paint schemes. Mm-hmm. At least in the case of Alex Albon, it's kind of working.
Yeah, no joke. That orange and blue looks really good.
It does. That's the old classic Gulf oil colors.
Yep.
2 teams are talking about big changes to their cars. Alpine needs a little bit of help. Stated that they're planning to introduce a new floor and underside to their racers before the upcoming summer break. They sit 6th in the championship standings right now and are fading a little bit. So they're looking at a new front wing for Hungary, and then they're going to do an entire new floor pan for the entire racer at Belgium. All of this, obviously, is to help in the aerodynamic situation here.
Right.
Again, this is Alpine, who they were looking really good last year. This year, kind of fading back a little bit as we go throughout the course of the year. So they're hoping that this is going to be the thing that's going to kind of launch them back into working their way back up in the Constructors' Cup standings. The other guys who, granted, they've been doing better since, 2 years ago when they scored a big fat goose egg, but they're still not doing quite exactly what they were hoping to do. Haas F1 is now considering doing what Mercedes did earlier this year. Switch the side pod theory. Red Bull has what they have termed a downwash side pod concept, which has an effect on the aerodynamics of the racers. Haas F1 said they're considering going that route, especially since their engine partner Ferrari made that change earlier this year as well. They're actually the only team currently not using a downwash side pod concept. It's difficult to explain. It's very, very difficult to get pictures of. Sorry, I couldn't do that for you. But here's the deal. Either way, Haas F1 needs to do something, because at 11 championship points, they're not really doing what they were expecting themselves to be able to do.
Yeah.
So something's got to happen. That car has shown speed, certainly in qualifying.
Right.
I don't know what it is between qualifying and race trim, but somewhere down the line, something changes.
Yeah, they lose it.
And I don't know whether they're wearing out tires or last year, the whole situation was Mercedes had that porpoising issue where the cars were basically just doing this for the entire race. We haven't heard that out of Haas F1, but whatever is happening over at Haas F1, their tires are wearing out a heck of a lot faster than their contemporaries. Side pod might be some of the issue. We'll find out, because we haven't even heard yet if they're going to make the change. They're just saying they're considering it. What I'm thinking is we're going to get past these next two races, Hungary, Belgium, and when we come back from the summer or August break, they'll have the new side pod in effect, because, as they noted, the team that they are a customer of when it comes to their engines, Ferrari, made that change earlier this year.
Right.
We'll find out.
Yep.
Mentioned it last week. 2024 Formula One schedule has been announced. It features what Liberty Media has been wanting for a couple of years now, that 24-race schedule, presuming China actually does race for the first time since 2019. Or if they don't, a suitable replacement race is found in time. Here's the thing. Most of the team bosses are in agreement. 24 is the high limit, but almost to a person. And it's not just the team bosses. It's the team owners. It's people with Liberty Media. And it's certainly the FIA. They all know there's a heck of a lot more interest for other countries and other locations to get races. South Africa, or I should just say the continent of Africa, is still one of those ones that Formula One dearly would love to get back to, because they race on every other continent that you can. They would love to go back to Africa. Did you notice this year that France isn't on the schedule? Well, French President Emmanuel Macron is letting it known that he wants his country to be back on the Formula One schedule, and he's thinking of a second race along the French Riviera might be nice, maybe in the city of Nice. This is the first season since 2017 that there isn't a French Grand Prix. It returned to Circuit Paul Ricard in 2018, but that contract was not renewed past just last year. We want it back. Give us auto racing. Okay, we'll see. Again, we're at 24 races already next year. Should China bow out, which is right now 50-50, maybe we go back to France. Maybe we don't. Their neighbors to the south, Spain, seem to be interested in bringing Formula One to Madrid. Now, do they mean taking the race that they currently have and taking it to Madrid, or adding a second race in the country of Spain? Not really sure. They weren't clear. But Madrid currently is the city that's hosting the highly regarded Formula One exhibition at the IFEMA, or IFEMA, Fairgrounds and Convention Center. Attendance has been such that city officials are thinking that a race would prove to be every bit, if not more, beneficial. Again, Barcelona is currently the home of the Spanish Grand Prix, Circuit de Catalunya, but they have a contract through 2026. So again, I ask the question, 2 races in Spain, or do we move it from Barcelona, where it has been successful, to Madrid, which is a little bit of an unknown, but again, the capital city? I don't know.
Take the race from China and put it in Madrid.
I don't have a problem with that.
But what about France?
France!
Oh,
Yeah, no,
Mon chéri.
I don't know.
Take a race from Italy and put it in France, because they have 3 races in Italy.
Yeah, really. Of course, they could say that about the United States, too.
I'd say for the first go-around, they probably want to do Barcelona and Madrid, if they're going to add Madrid
If it can
to
be
the
done.
schedule.
Yeah, if it can be done.
24 races are too many, guys. The NASCAR Xfinity Series would like a word with you. Not
Yeah.
Cup, the Xfinity Series.
Sure. But I will give them this. And here is the counter argument to it. Xfinity Series is basically United States based.
Yeah.
They're not traveling all around the world.
Nope.
Takes time to do that.
Yep.
Let's see. As to the 2024 schedule, one thing that wasn't noted is we will get 6 sprint races. That number will stay steady from this year to next year. We just don't know which 6 races are going to include those sprint races. We're not expected to find that out until September, according to Formula One president Stefano Domenicali. But he said he's actually thinking of awarding some form of bonus to any driver who could win the sprint race and then turn around and win the Grand Prix. So, in other words, whatever bonus would pretty much automatically go to Max Verstappen for 6 races this year.
Yeah.
And
pretty
I'm not
much.
necessarily certain that it was going to change a whole heck of a lot next year.
No.
But either way, he talked to motorsport.com about this earlier this week, said, quote, there is a proposal I would like to make in line with the concept of a Grand Slam, is that the drivers who take the 2 poles and the 2 race wins over a particular weekend, they should be recognized with something extra, which represents, the sporting enterprise that they have achieved. The idea, he says, is still in the workshop stage, but likely would result in something either bonus championship points, or it might end up being more like a special trophy or a monetary bonus. Now, again, you got to get the pole for the sprint, win the sprint, get the pole for the Grand Prix, and win the Grand Prix. It's not an easy feat. Should it be noted? Yes. Should you get bonus points? In a year like this year, where we have effectively taken the rest of the schedule, 12 more races if I remember right.
Yeah.
Not 13, 12.
Correct.
We have effectively penciled in Max Verstappen as the winner of each and every single one of them. What's to keep us from thinking that Max can't win the pole and the race? Oh, I'm sorry, the pole and the sprint, and then the pole and the race for all of those races. Are you going to give him that many more bonus championship points?
It's basically, in a way, saying, Max, here you go, to where you can set a record for the largest gap of points in an F1 world title season. That's basically what it's doing, if you ask me.
I'm going to be curious to see how this goes. We probably will find out sometime around September when we find out which 6 races get the sprint race addition onto it. I do like the fact that they're not tying the sprint race into the starting lineup. Sprint race is just an extra way to grab some bonus points. It helped out Haas F1 last time they did a sprint race. That's how they got to 11 championship points, with Nico Hülkenberg getting a top 8 finish in the sprint race. It just didn't translate into the regular race. But yeah, with the domination right now of Max Verstappen, I just think it would be crazy to award bonus championship points, because it's already something of a laugher, and it would just become even more comedic. Something that's not comedic is this whole situation regarding Andretti Cadillac and their want to get into Formula One. We'll talk more about that next on CRN.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back in. I'm Steve West. That's Matt Nicholson, producer John Myers. All of us in studio this week and about an hour away from CRN interrogation time. In the meantime,
A twist on story time.
yes, it is. Here's the thing here. We've been following this ever since Michael Andretti and Andretti Global, as they're now kind of being known, has expressed their interest in getting a Formula One operation. It was about a year ago now that he started to kind of start sniffing around and seeing if there was any interest where he could buy out a team, period, or at least buy into a team. But in whatever way, should Michael Andretti become a Formula One team owner, I can guarantee you he will have a built-in rivalry with Mercedes and specifically their team principal, Toto Wolff. Wolff has not only been against the idea of Formula One adding an 11th team to the starting grid, but he's been the most vocal person about it. Wolff's latest volley in his campaign against an 11th team and Andretti came last weekend in Britain, where he told media that Andretti, and for that matter any other prospective new team owner, should simply buy a team that's currently competing in the series. Andretti, of course, got asked about it almost immediately. He was sitting there watching his Extreme E team compete last weekend in Sardinia. Well, he responded appropriately and probably more professionally than I would have. He said, quote, "We've tried. Nobody's interested. Nobody's selling. I mean, we've been to every single team. They keep saying, well, buy a team, but nobody wants to sell. You go there, they're not even interested in talking. So, yeah, I've been there, done that, not happening." His first attempt that we know of was the Sauber operation, but they ended up balking at it because Andretti said he wanted to buy controlling interest. Sauber didn't want to sell controlling interest in that. And then they turned around and split it 50-50 with Audi. Word has it he also talked with Gene Haas about Haas F1. He also talked to Doralton Capital about Williams. And both of them said thanks, but no thanks. So, Toto, next. This
Yeah.
reticence is too light of a word. This extreme desire against having an 11th team added to the Formula One starting grid just plain boggles my mind. Even Formula One's director, Stefano Domenicali, has said he doesn't really see much benefit in bringing an 11th team to the starting grid unless they bring something significant to Formula One. Oh, I'm sorry. Does Michael Andretti's bringing of General Motors seem like a small thing to you?
That's what I was about to say. Is General Motors not significant? It puts General Motors in Formula One somewhere that I don't recall them being in.
I don't think they've ever been involved in Formula One. And it would almost automatically put them in a situation where they're even that much more involved than Ford. Remember, Ford's coming in 2026 as a partner with Red Bull, but really the partnership doesn't have really much more to do than Red Bull agreeing to put Ford's blue oval icon on the engine block or on the headers or on the valve covers or wherever they're going to put that name on the engine and put it somewhere on the car. Ford isn't building that engine. That's still the old Honda blueprint. Even when they go to 2026, it's the basic Honda blueprint. It ain't a Ford engine. On the other hand, Cadillac is working with Andretti right now, even without having been told you have a Formula One car. Cadillac and Andretti are already working on building cars because they want to start racing the year before the new engine regulations take effect. They said they're willing to go racing in 2025 and then take the hit and the bite and the monetary hit and do the entire engine regulation change from the 25 season to the 26 season.
Mm-hmm.
They're all in.
Mm-hmm.
They're not only putting both feet in the water, they have gone from being bone dry to diving off the high dive into the deep end. Like that.
Yep.
It's Cadillac and General Motors. It's not like John and Matt and I started a car company and go, hey, let's go Formula One racing. No. It's one of the biggest car companies in the world. I'm sorry, we need to make sure that you bring something to Formula One. Cadillac. That's what we bring. You morons.
Yep.
Might want to talk to the fine folks up there at the FIA, who basically just said exactly what I said. Why wouldn't we want General Motors involved in our series? You should. Duh. On to other stuff. If you watched the race last weekend, Brad Pitt was all over the Formula One grid last weekend, even though he didn't actually race. It was his highly modified Formula 2 ride that would have been rolling. It would have been a rolling roadblock, because I guarantee you it didn't have anywhere near the power of an actual Formula 1 car, number one, and number two, it's a Formula 2 car. But they did have their own, mostly fully equipped garage stall, working on cars that had cameras all over them, and even Brad Pitt got to turn some laps in that Formula 2 car. He talked to Sky Sports about the experience afterwards, said that of the cameras that were all over the cars, that the intent was to give the viewers of the movie, which is, by the way, an exclusive for Apple Plus streaming viewers, a real sense of the speed and the G-forces that these cars can pull. He also gave a little bit more information about the movie, like the plot, which we can now divulge to you. Pitt talked about his character. We noted last week his character's name's going to be Sonny Hayes. Pitt said, quote, so he has had a horrible crash, kind of craps out, disappears. He's racing in other disciplines. His friend, who's played in the movie by Javier Bardem, happens to be a Formula One team owner. They're last place, AlphaTauri right now. 21 and 22 on the grid. They've never scored a championship point. They have this young phenom who's being played in the movie by actor Damson Idris. So my friend Javier Bardem brings me in as kind of a Hail Mary and something of a mentor, if you will, and hijinks ensue. Okay, so we know the basic plot. Hijinks ensue. Comedy? I wouldn't think so.
No, I don't see this as a comedy.
I don't think Formula One would be willing to make this a comedy.
Yeah.
So I think he just kind of does that with a little wink and a smile when he says hijinks ensue. Either way, we know the basic plot should be ready by mid-2024. And one more note when it comes to Formula One here. Wednesday night, ESPN honored what the fans voted on as the best in sports. 4 drivers got nominated for their annual Best Driver category. 3 of them got severely overshadowed by the dominating performance of 2-time defending Formula One champion Max Verstappen, who claimed 15 wins last year, breaking an all-time record for wins in a season in Formula One, and that was good enough. The fans voted him and named him the 2023 ESPY Best Driver winner.
Color me shocked.
Sure. Color me not shocked, actually.
Yeah.
Not surprised at all.
That was pure sarcasm on my side.
This was one of those things, I have to admit, this was one of the few years that I actually did not take the time to vote in the ESPY Best Driver Award. Mm-hmm. But I could see this one coming a mile away.
Right.
If it had been any of the other 3 drivers, not that any of the other 3 drivers that were nominated weren't deserving of being noted as a top-level driver, NHRA, Indycar, and Cup Series, by the way, just to let you know. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, Max Verstappen, he was the obvious choice.
No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
All right. Let's turn our attention over to the Cup Series here, and this is something that has been rumored for a while and actually has been in the works for even longer. Anheuser-Busch set to move their sponsorship at the end of this year. This is a company that's been with Stewart-Haas Racing for several years now. They've been on the 4 car for Kevin Harvick really ever since Kevin Harvick came over to Stewart-Haas Racing, right?
Yes.
First with Budweiser, and then they switched a few years ago. Not like last year. A few years ago, they switched from Budweiser to sister company Busch Light. Well, as we know, Harvick is set to retire at the end of the year. Not only does Harvick have a limited time at the organization, so does Busch Light, because Trackhouse Racing, with the picture that you're about to see on CRN Live on YouTube, courtesy of Trackhouse Racing, they're going to get that sponsorship. Harvick moves into Fox to help call the races. Anheuser-Busch and the Busch brand will take on the 1 car of Ross Chastain, and they stated that that was a deal that's actually been in negotiations for months, but it got pushed back. Number 1, wanting to celebrate Harvick's final year and not take the spotlight away from that. And then there's that whole Anheuser-Busch controversy surrounding the sister brand Bud Light, which I'm not going to get into because you want to talk about a cesspool. Either way, from April 3rd through June 22nd, Busch Light had been radio silent, really, on social media. They do remain active as NASCAR premier sponsor, and when Trackhouse Racing finally won 2 races in a row, including one of them by Chastain, they finally said, you know what, now seems to be the time to make the announcement public. The deal is said to be a multi-year deal, but the details of it have not been announced. I would imagine it's probably, 4-year deal, give or take?
3 to 4, I'm sure.
3 to 4, probably. Over at Joe Gibbs Racing, like the rich get richer here, they got a new sponsor coming on board the 11 car for Denny Hamlin. As you'll see on CRN Live on YouTube, courtesy of Joe Gibbs Racing social media, their new sponsor is Mavis Tire and Brakes. They come on board as a primary sponsor for 5 races through the end of the year. The first of those this weekend in New Hampshire. You'll see them again, that car right there, at Pocono, Richmond, Michigan, and Watkins Glen. So basically, they're going to be in and out before the playoffs begin.
Pretty much the next 5 races.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
But hey, congratulations. Over at Live Fast Motorsports, they are going with another driver. BJ McLeod's not going to be in the number 78 Chevrolet Camaro this weekend at the Cup Series race. Not this weekend, but at the Cup Series race in Kansas in September. Instead, they're turning to an Xfinity Series driver, Sheldon Creed. He's going to get himself into that car, along with sponsorship from his Xfinity Series sponsor, Whalen Engineering. Again, this will be Kansas in September. Creed right now sits 10th in Xfinity Series points and only his second full year of competition at that level. Before that, he was the 2020 Truck Series champion. Thanks to NASCAR.com for that look at Creed. That's pretty much what he's going to be wearing, except instead of saying Xfinity right here, it'll say Cup Series.
Mm-hmm.
First opportunity for him.
Surely in a car fully prepared by RCR.
So that brings the question. Expectations?
He can finish top 25. It's top 25 and clean. I think he's good.
Okay. This a tryout for him eventually at the Cup Series level?
Possibly.
Because you and I have talked about this. This is a resurgent year for Richard Childress Racing, obviously spearheaded by Kyle Busch.
Sure.
I mean, sorry, Austin, but you're being highly overshadowed by your teammate.
Yeah.
But Kyle Busch is certainly dragging Richard Childress Racing, maybe even kicking and screaming, back into respectability.
Oh, sure.
Is this a potential tryout for Richard Childress entering a third car and putting Sheldon Creed in the Cup Series, maybe as soon as next year?
I'm going to say it's a 50-50 shot.
Now,
because I'm unsure.
Okay. Now I'm going to put you in the place of Richard Childress.
Yeah.
Because you said you think it would be a good finish if he was top 25 with a clean car. If you're in the position of being Richard Childress,
mm-hmm.
and you're considering the scenario I just gave you,
mm-hmm.
what is it that you want to see out of Sheldon Creed at this race in Kansas? Presuming, of course, like you said, that RCR is the company that sets up the Live Fast Motorsports car for this particular race.
Oh, I'm sure it will be.
And I'm sure you're right. What do you, in the case of you being Richard Childress, what do you need to see out of Sheldon Creed in that race that tells you I'm ready to enter a third Cup Series car and put him in it?
A clean race. No stupid mistakes. Finish all the laps.
Mm-hmm.
Have a clean car.
Okay.
There's a difference between clean race and a clean car.
True.
And if you pull out a top 20 in that car, I'm going to say the odds go 60-40.
Okay. I mean, he's had Whalen Engineering with him for at least his time in Xfinity.
Yes, it's been straight Xfinity.
I'd be shocked if they wouldn't be willing to go with him to Cup.
I wouldn't totally be shocked either.
Now, would they do all the races? Probably not. But I could see him doing a majority.
Because if right now, RCR says 24, we're going to a third car. That's Austin Hill's seat.
There you go.
Sorry.
One more note in the Cup Series here, and then we'll take a break. We noted that the SRX Series made a change in race location because of heavy rains and flooding in New England. NASCAR, as we noted as well, is racing in New Hampshire this weekend. They're not immune to this due to the forecast of more rain and thunderstorms, especially on Monday and Tuesday. They had a planned 2-day tire test at New Hampshire Motor Speedway for a potential new short track and road course rule changes, tires, and checking out a potential new package. That's done. They're not going to do it. The 6 teams that were scheduled to remain at the track to try different aero changes to the front splitter and underbody of the cars, and then work in softer compound Goodyear tires as to what might work best. That has been postponed. Several iterations were attempted in wind tunnel testing. NASCAR wanted to see it actually on the track. No word on whether or not they're going to get that rescheduled, and if they do, where would it be?
I think
you got Richmond, you got Martinsville coming up. I would imagine those two are more likely than Bristol.
I seen that it was going to be Richmond.
Okay. And that would make sense. It's not a mirror image of New Hampshire by any stretch, but it's certainly much closer than either of the other two well-known short tracks. But again, nothing official yet. We will keep you updated on that. So hour 1's in the books. Hour 2 is coming. That guy over there is about to undergo the white-hot spotlight of interrogation. But in the meantime, we're going to talk a little Hall of Fame action. NASCAR released the 2024 class nominees. We'll go over them when we come back on CRN.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. 4 tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back into the show. Hour 2 getting underway here. If you missed Hour 1, where you been? We keep telling you. We start at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time.
You missed a lot, man.
That's right. There's a lot to miss. So make sure that you set your alarms appropriately for next weekend, and thank you for joining us right now. Chase Elliott, as we talk about the Xfinity Series for one quick moment, set to be moonlighting in the upcoming Xfinity Series race at Pocono Raceway. He's going to get in that part-time Hendrick Motorsports number 17 Camaro, HendrickCars.com as the primary sponsor. Elliott, 2014 Xfinity Series champion, making his first start in the Xfinity Series since 2021 when he was on the Indy Road Course, finished 4th that day in a junior motorsports entry. And we already know, number one, Chase Elliott is very, very good. It's Pocono. He's good there. And I don't think they've ever fielded a bad Xfinity Series number 17 HendrickCars.com car since they brought it back.
Negative.
So he's automatically a threat. Craftsman Truck Series news, one bit of news here. And Chi-Town Mark, you'll be very happy to note that, we get to mention the Slinger Nationals that happened on Tuesday. Thor Sport Racing's Ty Majeski, doing a little extracurricular racing this week, came away the winner at the prestigious Slinger Nationals Tuesday evening. The late race restart bunched the field up and basically had the perfect chance to challenge the leader, Luke Fenhouse, an ARCA Menards East competitor by trade. And what did Majeski do? Took the high line, grabbed the win. You'll be able to see that look from him in Victory Lane, courtesy of the fine folks at newsbreak.com. He used the high line, went on, grabbed the win. Majeski beating out other notable names. The aforementioned Chase Elliott finished 6th. Defending winner, William Byron, Cup Series driver himself, finished 10th. Other NASCAR drivers that were racing that finished outside the top 10, Eric Jones, Derek Kraus, Johnny Sauter, Matt Kenseth. Matt Kenseth didn't break the top 20.
That's a surprise.
That's why I mentioned it, because that did surprise me to find he didn't crack the top 20. Basic NASCAR news. If you've been wondering what's going to happen with the Le Mans Garage 56 entry, the one that NASCAR, Hendrick Motorsports, Chevrolet, Goodyear, Taco Bell, McDonald's, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, and everybody else put out there. Well, now that Le Mans is done, we didn't know what was going to happen to it either, but it's still around and still going to be shown off. For example, it's in England this weekend. Well, not the actual one that raced in the 24 Hours Le Mans. This is the backup car. But 2 of the Le Mans drivers, Mike Rockenfeller and Jenson Button, going to get it, and they're going to have the chance to run up the hill at the Goodwood Festival of Speed in England this weekend some 7 different times. This is that car that surprised everybody and it was a top 50 car when all was said and done. Mm-hmm. And that ain't bad out of 60-plus entries when you really had no idea what you're going to be doing with this big, humongous beast compared with all these other sleek-looking, very low-to-the-ground, low-profile cars. I mean, do yourself a favor. I should have found a picture of this. Do yourself a favor and do a search of Garage 56 at Le Mans. Try and find a picture of them actually on the track. And look at the difference just in the height of the Garage 56 entry and all those other sleek little fast cars.
Picture that meme that you've seen a few years ago with Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s car, like huge when he was at Daytona. And everybody was making fun of him, starting all the wrecks. And his car would look like a big, huge, giant bulldozer, and all the other cars were like this big, real small. So picture that, and that's what you see with the Garage 56 car versus all the LMP2 cars, the Daytona prototypes, hypercars, whatever they call them now. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah. John's working on a picture right now, so we're going to hang on this. But yeah, this is effectively what they did was they took a Cup Series Gen 7 car and they did some modifications. I mean, this is a 24-hour race, so they had to have working lights. You had to have windshield wipers and things like that, more than just what you would have in your basic road course package for a NASCAR Cup Series car. So there were things that they had to do that made the car available to be able to run literally 24 hours. You got it, John? Yeah, it looks like he does. When you look at this, you're going to see a big difference in the height. And to think that this car was actually leading the GT3 class for a little while until not an engine problem, they had a brake problem. that caused them to have to pit the car for a good number of laps, unfortunately.
So the car we're looking at is the blue car. That's
Yes.
the Garage 56
That's
entry.
the Garage 56 entry. Look at the height on that and then compare it to all those other cars that are coming around that long Mulsanne Straight or coming off the Mulsanne Straight. I can guarantee you, I can recognize that curve right there. That's coming down at the end of the Mulsanne Straight and making that hard, more than 90-degree right and starting to come back up towards the start-finish line. Look at the height of that Garage 56 car. Look at the heights of those other cars. And that car was leading an entire class,
Just slightly
specifically built for racing at Le Mans.
slightly less aerodynamic than the others. That's all.
Yeah. And yet
Just a little bit more drag.
did quite the nice job. Congratulations
It did.
to those guys for being able to do what they did. And yeah, I would imagine that car will be around for a while longer. Then we get to the 2024 NASCAR Hall of Fame nominee list. It was announced this past week. Remember, a little bit harder now than before to get in. Only 3 get in, and they've got it split. 2 of those 3 get in on what they call the modern ballot, 1 from the pioneer ballot. The pioneer ballot is those who began and or ran the vast majority of their careers before 1972. It includes Alabama gang member Donnie Allison, who you're about to see up there. 10-time race winner, 1967 Rookie of the Year. He's got some pretty interesting competition. Sam Ard, a pioneer in what is now the Xfinity Series. He's a 2-time champion of that series. Another driver, the legend, A.J. Foyt. Now, A.J. Foyt, probably much better known for his IndyCar exploits, but maybe a surprise to some, including a guy who I work with Monday through Friday and produce the morning show of, Richard Dixon. He didn't even know A.J. Foyt had even raced in NASCAR, much less was a 7-time race winner in Cup Series competition, including winning the 1972 Daytona 500. How about more stiff competition? Banjo Matthews is a car builder by trade, saw his cars go to victory lane more than 250 times in NASCAR competition. And oh, by the way, then there's Ralph Moody. He's half of the noted Holman Moody team ownership, the mechanical genius of the 2-time championship-winning organization. By the way, thanks to the pics, thanks to Getty Images and Newsweek for the pictures of Donnie Allison and A.J. Foyt that you saw on CRN Live on YouTube. A.J. Foyt is worthy. There's no doubt about it. Donnie Allison's worthy. No doubt about it. Banjo Matthews, 250-time winner as a car builder, and half of the Holman Moody organization. Now, we all 3 are technically members of the National Motorsports Press Association. This show is a member of the National Motorsports Press Association. But we are not Hall of Fame voting members at this point in time. Would I like to be? Absolutely.
Keyword at this time.
Do I envy the vote that these people have to make here? Not at all. But if you're voting, who are you voting for out of those 5?
Oh, boy.
I'm going to tell you right now, I'm playing Homer. I'm putting Donnie Allison in.
I'm going to say between me, back to something you said earlier, is A.J. Foyt worthy to get in? Yes.
Is he more worthy than Donnie Allison? There's a reason I chose Donnie over AJ.
I'm going to say no. But if I had to put one in, I'm going to say Donnie goes in 25.
Okay. Who are you putting in 24?
Sam Ard.
You're going to go with Ard. Okay.
I'll put Sam Ard in.
All right. And again, I can't argue against any of the choices. Any of them are highly, highly worthy. Then you get to the modern era ballot. These are the guys that either started after 1972 or had the vast majority of their career after 1972. Modern ballot does have another Alabama gang member. It is Neil Bonnet. Neil Bonnet is an 18-time winner in Cup competition. You see the pick of Bonnet right now, courtesy of NASCAR.com on CRN Live on YouTube. Then there's Tim Brewer, who's the 2-time Cup Series champion winning crew chief. You got Jeff Burton, who's a current NBC NASCAR analyst, but a 20-time Cup Series race winner. You got Carl Edwards, a 28-time Cup Series winner and the 2007 champion of what is now the Xfinity Series. You've got Harry Gant, who's an 18-time winner in the Cup Series. You got Harry Hyde, who's the 1970 Cup-winning crew chief and kind of the basis for the crew chief that showed up in Days of Thunder. Larry Phillips, the first ever 5-time champion in NASCAR Weekly Series competition. You got Ricky Rudd, who's won 23 times in the Cup Series. If we stopped there, who are you going with?
I'm going to go with Larry Phillips. Based off of the merit of when you put Richie Evans in.
Okay. Which I have no problem
Richie
with
Evans, Jerry Cook. You have that criteria. You have that baseline set. That warrants Larry Phillips getting in. He's been on the ballot for a few years. I say Larry Phillips.
Okay.
And I'm going to say Larry Phillips, and I'm going to say Tim Brewer.
Okay. I agree with you on Larry Phillips. The other one was the toss-up to me between Harry Gant and Neil Bonnet. And I landed on Neil Bonnet only to just kind of go all Alabama gang, and, well, let's face it, I'm being a homer. But I couldn't argue with anyone. But here's the thing. There are two more guys that show up on the ballot this year.
Looming very large.
And I get the funny feeling that they're going to block out the rest of the modern ballot. The two guys who are about to show up on CRN Live of YouTube, courtesy of ESPN.com. I'm talking about the driver-crew chief pairing of Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus. Need I say more than they won 83 Cup Series races and 7 Cup Series titles, 5 of them in a row. I don't care whether you love him, you don't care one way or the other, or you absolutely hate either one or both of them.
Love to hate.
The resume speaks for itself. I think those two suck the air right out of the room.
I disagree.
Okay. I'll be interested to see if it happens, but I think that they do.
I agree simply because they're still racing. You still see Jimmy Johnson on a regular basis.
Yeah, but he's semi-retired.
His name is in the forefront as opposed to the rest of the ballot.
Oh, sure.
Chad's on that.
And if we've proven any one thing, and I'll let you finish here, but if we've proven any one thing in our society right now, we have a really short attention span.
Very short. But in a way, Chad is on that same level as Jeff Gordon is in a managerial role with Hendrick Motorsports.
Agreed.
Well, here's where I disagree with it.
Okay.
Did Dale Earnhardt and Kirk Shelmerdine go in at the same time?
No.
Did Dale Inman and Richard Petty go in at the same time?
Should have, but didn't.
These two will not go in at the same time.
Okay.
They're going to split them.
And I do see your point there. And you might be right on to something.
I don't see any circumstance that hits the table whatsoever where Johnson does not go in as a lock.
That's what I'm saying.
Agreed. They're both going in.
And the key thing here in my mind is because Johnson is still in the news is the term, but he's still at the forefront of NASCAR. He's still visible, and that's going to put his name in the minds of everybody.
I would agree.
Sure.
The only thing that makes me think that they might be changing is a couple of years ago when we got Tony Stewart that rolled in, and he rolled in with the guy he was the teammate with at Joe Gibbs Racing for so long, and that was Bobby Labonte. And oh, by the way, who was the team owner that went in that year? Well, that's right, it was Joe Gibbs.
Sure.
So they might be willing to change that. We'll see. Voting happens a little bit later. By the way, there is a fan vote aspect to this. So if you go on to, I have to admit, I didn't look it up. Is it NASCARHallOfFame.com, I think?
Yes.
If you go to NASCAR Hall of Fame's website, you'll be able to look it up. By the way, there's a Landmark Award winner as well. Amongst them, Janet Guthrie, the first woman to qualify for a NASCAR Superspeedway race. Alvin Hawkins, the first flagman for NASCAR. Lisa France Kennedy, member of the founding France family, and currently its executive vice chair. You also got Dr. Joseph Mattioli, the founder of Pocono Raceway, and Les Richter, the longtime competition director who helped the series move out west. One of those is going to go in as well. SRX Series news next.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back.
We're
2 tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
We are back. I'm Steve West. That's Matt Nicholson. Producer John Myers over there. Not pictured, by the way, just to let you know. Hopefully you're enjoying the show. We appreciate it, whether you're listening on the radio or via the app for the radio station, which if you're watching CRN Live on YouTube, you can see what the station is, by the way. And for those of you that are on CRN Live on YouTube, thank you very much. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. If you have already, please tell a friend and tell them to tell their friends. We noted this during the race recap and rundown that Formula E got their first race of a Rome E-Prix doubleheader weekend begun just before we went on the air at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time. And where are they right now?
Lap 16 of 25, you've got Jake Dennis just has taken the lead with Mitch Evans right behind him.
And that seems to be rather slow for a race that's, 25 laps?
Yes.
There's a reason why.
Massive accident that happened that took out 6 cars.
Ouch.
Sam Bird, Sebastian Buemi, Antonio Felix da Costa, Eduardo Mortara, Lucas deGrassi, and Robin Frines.
How big was the starting field on that thing?
21.
21.
So it took out over a quarter of the field.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh,
Ouch.
wee.
Let's talk a little Superstar Racing Experience. They just got themselves started in year number 3 of that All-Star Series. Thursday night, Ryan Newman bringing a traditional NASCAR sponsor over to the SRX Series this year. South Point Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas coming on board to sponsor Newman and his number 39 racer. Thing about it is, not only are they sponsoring Ryan Newman, they're also sponsoring Kevin Harvick in his races. That's what those cars are going to look like this year. Harvick's on a part-time deal. Newman's full-time, all 6 races. So, yeah. South Point already, we know this already. We've seen them in the Cup Series and in Xfinity competition as well. They put out a pretty good-looking car.
They do. It needs something a little different because it's really hard to distinguish who's who on the track.
It kind of is. You have to really pay attention to the number when they're both racing.
You know what those SRX cars remind me of?
Talk to me.
They remind me of my favorite slot track racers.
I can see that. Mm-hmm. And that may have been part of what they were shooting for. We'll give you another look at a couple of cars. Last week here on the show, I noted the Purdue University sponsorship for Elio Castroneves and Tony Kanaan for all the races this coming season in SRX competition. I noted I was going to try and get you a look at them, much like the South Point look, courtesy of SRX social media. You can see those two right now on CRN Live on YouTube. You will not see those 2 cars on the track in all 6 races. Kanaan and Elio Castroneves are basically going to trade off for the most part this year, and you can see the difference in the numbers. 66 for Kanaan, 06 for Elio Castroneves. First race winner Denny Hamlin not going to be in the second race of the SRX season. In fact, the lineup goes through, several changes. So you got a 12-driver lineup. Feature your regulars. Marco Andretti's back full-time. Paul Tracy's back full-time, as is Haley Deegan, Brad Keselowski, Tony Stewart, Bobby Labonte, Ryan Newman, Ken All Drive Anything Anywhere Schrader, Tony Kanaan, Elio Castroneves. Like we said, they're going to split that car. The newcomers for week number 2, Kenny Wallace in the 36. We talked about him earlier. Then there's this guy right here, Ryan Preece. He's bringing his Cup Series number 41 with him. He's going to be in there making his SRX debut. Greg Biffle, who is an SRX veteran, he's back. He'll be in the 69 car. Bring his number with the Cup Series as well. Will be Daniel Suarez in the 99, I believe, making his SRX debut. Wallace, Preece, Suarez. 3 newcomers for this week's race. Pick a Preece, as we talked about, courtesy of the Superstar Racing Experience.
Right.
Now, back during the race schedule, I did note that the SRX Series will not be going as scheduled to Bear, Vermont, to Thunder Road Speed Bowl as initially scheduled due to the intense rains over the past couple of weeks and severe flooding in and around the area, notably Bear, Vermont. The series released a statement regarding not going there. Quote, after 2 days of conversations between SRX, Governor Phil Scott, track owner Chris Michaud, we have collectively made the difficult yet necessary decision to move the location of next week's race from Thunder Road Speed Bowl to Stafford Motor Speedway in Stafford Springs, Connecticut. In other words, they basically stay right where they were to begin the year. The statement continued, quote, "While we're disappointed to not visit Thunder Road this summer, SRX is announcing that we have already awarded Thunder Road a 2024 race date." That's appropriate. That's the thing to do right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
He did mention, by the way, that Thunder Road will refund all the tickets that were purchased for this year's race. I will ask the question. Let's say you're a ticket buyer.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm the track, this is how I handle it. I'm calling up Matt, and I'm going, "Matt, we can refund you the money for the tickets that you bought for the SRX race this year, but we already know, in case you haven't heard, that we're going to get a 2024 SRX race. Would you like to keep those tickets and use them in 2024?
Yes.
And I would imagine most of the people would say exactly that.
Yep.
I hope, I really do, that Thunder Road gives that as an option.
Oh, no
That
doubt.
would be the cool way to do it.
No doubt.
National Hot Rod Association, NHRA News 2023 postseason awards ceremony returns to Southern California's wine country. And it's going to take place November the 13th, the day after the final race of the 2023 season. It is invitation only. It's a black tie affair. Yeah. All these guys that get all dirty and grimy working on cars and, all that stuff, they're going to be getting into black ties and suits and dresses. And it's going to be held at the Pachanga Resort Casino, set to honor the Camping World Drag Series race champions of this year. In case you missed it, I said the Southern California wine region. Yeah, there is one. Who knew? With the Pachanga Resort located about 60 miles south of the In-N-Out Burger drag strip in Pomona. For those of you that are going, wait a minute, In-N-Out Burger, wasn't that Auto Club Speedway? Yeah, it was. Until last year. Now it's the In-N-Out Burger drag strip. The resort is a new partner, by the way, with that facility, extending and strengthening a partnership with the resort that actually began last year. Kalitta Motorsports pulling off a deal that's set to benefit the team as well, but also it will benefit the associated Kalitta Air. It's not one of those airlines that you can just walk up to your local airport wherever in the world you happen to be and get on a flight with. No, this is a pretty high-end charter deal. But the deal brings aboard a new partner in a company called Future Energy Solutions Lighting. The deal will not only see them be a primary partner on the Top Fuel ride of Sean Langdon, they'll also be a primary sponsor at the Strip in Las Vegas in late October and act as an associate sponsor for both Langdon and Doug Kalitta's Top Fuel rides for the remainder of the 2023 season. And in return, Future Energy Solutions Lighting will upgrade the lighting at every single one of Kalitta Air's 30 buildings all around the United States of America.
Hey, now.
There's a trade.
Yeah, it is.
Can't complain about that at all.
Nope.
Part-time team Buddy Hull Racing featuring owner-driver Buddy Hull. Going to be making at least 2 more starts this season, noting that they've added several associate sponsors that will allow them to enter this weekend's race, with additional plans to be at the NHRA Topeka, Kansas Nationals next month. I'm trying to go too fast is what I'm trying to do. I can't wait to get into the interrogation process. But anyway, yeah, so they're going to go to the NHRA Topeka Nationals next month as well. This weekend is only his 4th start of the year. One of the new additions is Renegade Fuels, and they're going to act as his primary sponsor for the Mile High Nationals. He's tried to qualify for 4. Like we mentioned, he's only made 2 finals. But for a part-time team with an owner-driver, that's not awfully shabby. That's a good start, is what we would call that.
It is.
And to the IndyCar series, where we noted this last week, Simon Pagenaud went into concussion protocol after several rollovers in a crash at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course in practice. Connor Daly was called in to sub for him in the race in a backup car. By the way, Meyershank Racing rebuilding that car that rolled over several times. As to whether they try and race it again or show it off in a museum, I don't know. But either way, Meyershank Racing has realized that with Simon Pagenaud still out, they needed another driver for this weekend at Toronto. Taking the wheel, 2-time defending Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona winner Tom Bloomquist will drive the number 60. Bloomquist, as you can see on CRN Live, courtesy of Yahoo.com, began his career racing open wheels, spent 4 seasons running Formula 3 in Europe, and at the ripe old age of 16, broke no less than Lewis Hamilton's mark and claimed the youngest title winner of the Formula Renault UK series. Still holds that mark. However, the past 7 years, the now 29-year-old's been running sports cars primarily. He won the IMSA championship for Meyershank Racing as well. That's how he is familiar with everybody at Meyershank Racing. So, yeah, he's going to get a chance to run IndyCar.
Good for
on
him.
A street course.
Good for him.
Where he's going to be comfortable.
Good for him.
That's a pretty good car, too.
Yeah, it's a good car and a good feeling. It's going to...
Wouldn't surprise me if he has something to say about tomorrow.
Yeah.
About the race tomorrow.
Yep.
As opposed to Formula One, where existing teams don't want to see growth and expansion. We've already talked about that. IndyCar apparently is all about it. Right now, there are 27 full-time cars on the starting grid. Hey, Toto Wolff. 27. Highest in a couple of decades. And there's more interested. Toto? Did I say it was 27? Just saying.
As opposed to what?
20?
Yeah.
The latest team that's interested is a company called Pratt Miller Engineering. They may be best known for building the Corvette IMSA racing program into a championship winner. They're currently working on a plan that would expand their motorsports division, and they say it would begin with an IndyCar operation while keeping the IMSA operation in business. The company's been involved in IndyCar for over a decade, but it's all been behind the scenes, helping out with GM Engineering design and development of their engine program that got reborn back in 2012. Remember that, kids? Ask your parents. Get used to that logo, by the way, that you see on CRN Live of YouTube, courtesy of GMauthority.com, because that look right there might just become a fixture in IndyCar fairly soon. Pratt Miller Motorsports VP Brandon Whitmer talked to Racer.com, said, quote, "We feel that there's a really good opportunity for us to be in IndyCar in the next couple of years. We're not going to rush it. We're looking for the right opportunity for us. We want to put together a program that's competitive so that we can be racing for wins and championships. And like I said, they plan to continue in IMSA with the Corvette program as long as they're going to go with it, or at least some form of affiliating with GM, because there is word that maybe the Corvette will not be running in IMSA past this year, but that's right now unconfirmed.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't surprise me if Pratt Miller comes in and builds a winning car pretty quick. And remember, IndyCar is set to go through new engine regulations here soon. I think they get instituted actually next year. So this gives them a chance to look at the new engine regulations, work within those regulations, and build the car and get comfortable and race when they're ready.
Yep. I think there'll be a threat for sure.
One-off Indy 500 entry next year, just to kind of do a test run?
I'm not going to say it's out of the question.
I wouldn't think so. Snap-on Tools, we all heard that name. They've been a longtime partner with the NTT IndyCar Series, and that has been renewed and extended. Multi-year deal announced on Wednesday. It'll keep the tool-making company as IndyCar's official tools and equipment partner, not only for the series, but for the famed Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Snap-on joined with the series and the track back in 2020 when Penske Entertainment became the owner of both the series and the track. Speaking of renewing with IndyCar, Green Savary Racing, promoters of several races on the IndyCar schedule, reportedly close to signing an extension to keep the Toronto Grand Prix on the slate of IndyCar events. This weekend's race is the last one under the current deal, but Toronto GP president Jeff Atkinson said he is confident and told media fans that they can expect many more years of the street race. It's just details have not been finalized yet. This is going to be cool. And I admit, it's been a long time. I did go with some friends who are actually watching on CRN Live on YouTube from Iowa. Met them in Indianapolis back in 2021, went to the inaugural NASCAR IndyCar doubleheader weekend, where IndyCar ran first on the road course, then the Xfinity Series cars took to the track. That was Saturday, and Sunday, you had the Cup Series go there. But I was just coming off a pretty severe surgery. So we did not take the time to go into the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum.
I think severe's an understatement.
Well, yeah. I have been in the museum, but it had been back in 1996 that I was in that museum. It was cool then. It got cooler over the course of time. I think you had the chance to go not that long
last
ago.
year.
And I'm sure it got cooler then. Well, guess what? It's about to get even that cooler. And here's the thing. That museum, IMS Museum, is technically separate from IndyCar, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, or Roger Penske or Penske Entertainment. The track doesn't own it. The series doesn't own it. and Penske Entertainment doesn't own it. It is an entity in and among itself, but it is located inside the track grounds of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and it's set to undergo a massive renovation and modernization. Museum itself is a tax-exempt, not-for-profit organization, so they're responsible for raising the money to do this in whatever way that they do, fundraising sources or donations. And they've got a renovation plan that has been budgeted at $89 million. They report that they've already raised over half that amount, some $46 million since beginning that fundraising effort. Rob Dyson, who's the chairman of the IMS's museum's board of directors, said, quote, "We hope everyone will join us to be part of the stories behind the spectacle as we reimagine incredible stories of the track and the Indianapolis 500, creating new experience for our visitors, and learn more about the traditions, the personalities, the technology, and the careers that comprise the greatest spectacle in racing." We're about to give you a couple of different pictures. I think it's 3 of them, all courtesy of Inside Indiana Business on CRN Live on YouTube, kind of give you an idea of what they're envisioning. These are all renditions. Obviously, this hasn't been done yet. These are all basically an artist rendition of what it will look like when they're done. Of the $89 million, some $64 million is being earmarked for renovating the interior of the museum, bringing in new infrastructure, state-of-the-art tech, all the idea to give the visitors a much more immersive experience. It'll include new car and equipment restoration facility that the museum goers can actually go into and see the work being done before those cars go out and get exhibited, or maybe it's a car that was on exhibit and needs a little bit of a refresh. About $10 million, they say, will be set aside in an endowment fund that will allow the museum to acquire future items for the museum, cars, artwork, so on and so forth. A lot of this work is going to necessitate some temporary closings of the museum as well. So if you're thinking about a trip to Indianapolis to tour the museum, and I highly recommend you do, keep an eye on their website. Go to imsmuseum.org, imsmuseum.org, and there they're going to note which dates that they're going to be open or they're going to be shut because of said upgrades. It's going to be cool. Going to have to do a field trip.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's field trip.
That's like, for me last year when I went up there, that was like a 6-year-old going to a Build-A-Bear workshop and could sit there all day.
Sure.
I could have sat there all day.
Or a penny candy store.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Or
Kid
a
in a
Lego
candy
store.
Lego
store.
An adult at Bass Pro Shops, whatever.
Or a race car driver at Summit in Georgia.
Yeah, exactly. or any kind of a race fan at any kind of a race-oriented museum.
Yep.
I mean, that's literally what it is.
Yep.
And I don't know. We might have to try and work something out. I'm just saying. CRN
I'm not going to argue.
CRN field trip. Have to talk to the fine folks here at the home office, you know? Might be kind of cool. All right. When we come back, news is done. It's interrogation time, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. We put Matt under the spotlight, the white hot spotlight, and we fire questions. Not only myself, but producer John will be firing questions at Matt. We need to find out where he was and what he was doing last weekend.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Fuel only. Fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back in. Steve West, Matt Nicholson, producer John Myers. Before we turn the white hot spotlight directly into the eyeballs of one Matt Nicholson, we allow Matt Nicholson to be able to look at his computer screen and give us the final update on Formula E and the first of their doubleheader weekend in Rome.
Just went final. Mitch Evans took the win. Nick Cassidy second. Max Gunther third. Jake Dennis fourth, and Jean-Eric Verne fifth.
All right. We will have the results of, we'll remind you of those results next weekend and, of course, give you the results of tomorrow morning's race, the second race of the Rome E-Prix doubleheader, and update you on the points next weekend on the show. Last weekend on the show was an interesting one.
It was a twist.
Producer John Myers was out. He did set us up with a YouTube, CRN Live on YouTube. He did it remotely.
Audio version.
Yes. He did it remotely from home because he could not quite get the video that I was feeding to him and the audio that he was getting from a separate source and get them to match up. So it was video only with just a static picture of me. Matt joined us for about 10 or so minutes in the first segment of the show. Mm-hmm. And then you had to run, leaving me here all by myself.
Yeah, that's my fault.
Having to cover a 2-hour show. What the heck, man?
Why do I hear the song all by myself in my mind now?
No, I actually had plenty of stuff to be able to get through. John did a great job of being able to get the video up there remotely. Appreciate that, no doubt about it. But we said at the time, were gone for a personal situation. Exactly what the heck was that personal situation?
Did have some personal things to take care of on Friday. That's why I wasn't here at the station, dealing with some situations that me and my wife deal with. Well, call came in. Hey, can you come to Mid-Ohio Saturday? Huh? Sure.
Okay.
To the air we go. Early. And I mean real early.
Mm-hmm.
So last week on Saturday, made my spotting debut in the Craftsman Truck Series for the 32 truck.
Now explain to me exactly what that is.
For the road
and
course,
treat me like I'm an idiot.
Road course races, you have to have more than one spotter. In this instance, a lot of teams had 4, even 5 spotters. We had 4. So it was because the road course, your line of sight's not to where one person can see the whole track. You got to have them at different stations. Mm-hmm. So went up there, got what I needed, joined the team, and off to the races we go. No pun intended. It was I'll summarize it this way. It was the darndest, craziest, wildest, wettest, most fun thing I've ever done at a racetrack outside of a PA booth.
So you're watching the track and where your driver is on the track, and you're telling him, like in the movie Days of Thunder, you go high, stay low, whatever, like that. Right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
You, as things went along, you found out that you were actually going to be responsible for a heck of a lot more than what you initially thought you were as a rookie spotter.
Yeah, the reason I had to leave so quick because we had to meet and see who was going to go where exactly. So we ended up determining Jerry Baxter, the crew chief, he was really going to cover the zone from the carousel in 12, 13, down into turn 1 where the front stretch area was.
Makes sense.
A hauler driver, Sam Mabry, he was going to cover the exit of 1 through the keyhole in 2 down to the entry of 3 to where the de facto start line is, not the start finish line or the restart line, the starting line on the long back straight where Indycar starts. Mm-hmm. He was going to cover that zone. Brett's dad, Stacy, was on the main NASCAR spotter stand, the main spotter stand where the NASCAR officials were in turn 4 where China Beach was, where Simon Pagino had the vicious wreck the week before.
Right.
He had the exit of 3 through 4, 5, and the entry to 6. Old yellow stripe here, me. I took the zone of the exit of 6, 7, 8, 9, where the choose zone was,
We'll get
and
back
the
to
entry
that.
to 10. We decided to leave the exit of 10 into 11 blind because it was on a fairly decent straightaway.
Okay.
So we left that area blind. Those are the areas that we took. We utilized 4. There were several teams that utilized 5.
To be able to cover that last part that
Cover
you
that
were just
last
talking
part,
about.
yes. Yeah.
And so you were spotting 4.
32 truck. Brett Holmes, my brother-in-law.
Now, you mentioned something in there that I think a lot of people don't realize, but brand new for this year. NASCAR instituted the choose line for all the tracks that they had not previously done, which meant super speedways,
And road
Daytona,
courses.
Talladega, Atlanta, and all the road courses as well.
Sure. Yeah.
So you're the one responsible for telling them what lane to choose.
Right. Because before everything got started, I flat asked him the straight up question. I said, all right, with me being in the choose, I said, do you want left or do you want right? Thought a minute. He said, give me the left.
Okay.
I said, all right. He said, because that's going to put me, he said, even though it's going to put me on the outside of 1, that's going to put me on the inside going to 2.
There you go.
I said, fair enough. So, and then when the track was going to be starting wet, no pun intended, they went single file restarts.
Okay.
Because I was positioned on a truck in turn 8 with Brian Tedeschi, who was spotting for Matt Mills in the 20 truck, and Tracy Hines, who was spotting for Connor Jones in the 66 Thor Sport truck. The truck next to us was Mark Luscious. He was spotting for Haley Deegan. You had Kevin Striegel. That's a name familiar.
Yeah.
That was spotting for Daniel Dye. And then you had you had David Pepper, who was spotting for Matt Crafton. That's all of us that were in a group right there. So we're going, okay, single file, we're good. We're good. Rain stops. Stage 3 comes along. We're going double file. Lovely. So I had to get confirmation from us 100% for sure where we had double file. So luckily with the veteran that Jerry is, we'd said before, Jerry said, I'll give you your number. You just count it off. That way you don't have to worry about figuring out what our number's going to be. He said, I'll give you the number. We'll be all right. I said, no problem.
Okay.
That went way smoother than I thought it was going to go. Even with the aspect of some drivers were choosing late. Like they were getting like to within mere feet. I'm like very, very, very close to the choose zone in the aspect of probably driving over it, which would have been a penalty. They were choosing late. And that kind of threw me off one time, but I was able to anticipate it quick enough to where we was able to get into the right zone that he wanted to get into, because all I did was call a number. I didn't say 13's a number. If 12 go left, we go right or nothing like that. Brett just said, I'll take the determination. I'll just when I get there and I know you're 1 away from my number, I'll just pick a lane and go. I said, fair enough. So we went with that, rolled with that. We had 4 restarts in stage 3 that had to be a choose.
Wow. John is about to put a picture up on CRN Live on YouTube. There it is. Kind of describe this part of the track that's prominent on the screen and where you were, give or take.
Okay. When it pops up on my side. That is, let's see. Okay, that picture that's up, that's the area where the keyhole is in turn 2.
Okay.
Going down into turn 3. If you look at the wee top of the picture up there, very top is where the S's and 6, 7, 8, 9 over into toward turn 10 area is. That's the area I had.
Okay.
I was in the far zone away from the track. That was where the choose zone and the 1 to go line were.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go, right there. Actually, more towards the right-hand side behind that grove of trees right there. The thing that made it deceptive for me is the way the lay of the landscape is over there, the way the hills roll. If you got in 1 point, if you were in 1 point and you went one too many feet too way to the other, you would lose a zone. You would lose a turn. Case in point, to where I stood at in turn 8, if I went 30 feet to my left, I lost turn 9, but I picked up turn 7. So it was kind of a game there. But look, was able to get on the back of a truck, had clear sight of everything. We were good to go.
Okay. John, I think, is trying to put a different aspect of the track up there. As soon as he gets that done, we'll kind of explain that as well.
Yeah.
All right. So as a rookie, it seems like you're responsible for maybe even a little bit more than your fellow spotters are.
Sure. There's no doubt about that. I mean, the two, what I would call the two critical zones of the track, Brett's dad and I had those.
Okay.
We had the technical critical part of the track.
All right. This look at the track that John has just put up on CRN Live on YouTube here.
Oh, that's it right there.
That's your area.
Right there, when you see it coming out of China Beach at the top of the screen right there. That's 5 down into 6. 7 is a small back left-hander. Where it tops the hill, the first right-hander, the left-hander, excuse me. I was on that little hill right there where the left-hander was.
There you go.
And then 8 right there bears back around. The choose zone was in between 8 and 9 right here at the top of the screen.
Okay.
Where it was.
So you had basically that entire area that you had to cover.
I would lose him in my line of sight. I would lose him right past where the bridge is going down into 10.
Okay. All right.
And 10 is which?
10 is right there where the bridge is on the little straightaway. 10 is the first right-hander.
So if you're looking at the left-hand side of the screen.
Left-hand side of the screen where the white line crosses the track.
That's the bridge?
That's the bridge.
Okay.
I would lose him right there.
Now, what's the turn at the bottom of the picture?
That's turn 9.
So we're going clockwise.
Yeah, you're going clockwise. It's a majority right-handers at this track. Is the way it is. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right-handers, 8 left-handers. 5 left-handers, 8 right-handers. Excuse me.
Okay. All right. So in looking at this situation that you're dealing with here, and doing what you did at the end of the race, there's obviously the debrief, if you want to put it that way. It seems like an obvious way to go. How did the debrief go?
The debrief went very, very well. Even though I had to call Brett through when he got squoze off the track, not of his doing, and he got stuck in the gravel trap. Had to call him through that right there. Had to call him through 2 spins in front of him in the rain. But the post-race debrief, I'll say it this way. When you have a crew chief, Jerry Baxter is Brett's crew chief.
And a veteran.
The longtime veteran. Looks you square in the eye and says, for somebody that's never done this before, you did an outstanding job. Great job. That said it all. That said enough for me because I was just so deadlocked on calling what needed to be called, call what needed to be seen, and just making sure my responsibility on my end of the track, get the 32 truck clear.
Okay.
Keep him clear, keep him clean. Even though we had the skirmish right there, he got squoze off in the gravel trap. Everything else, clean as a whistle. And
Now,
for Jerry Baxter to say that to me, look at me in the eye and say it, I said, thank you. That means a lot.
Absolutely. And from what I understand, you had to wear a team shirt, but you had your choice of what kind of headwear you wanted to wear, other than obviously your headsets.
That flag flew too.
And I understand that more than one person questioned you about it.
Let's just say ThorSport Racing knows who CRN is.
Which is not a bad thing.
ThorSport knows.
That ain't a bad thing at all.
ThorSport knows.
And this, you think, has the potential to open up some other doors? I understand that we're not going to be able to go into a whole lot of detail here, so he's going to be very measured in his response here.
A question just popped up. Jeffrey Coddington asked, what was the most difficult or challenging part in the spotting? Hands down, it was through the rain part.
Oh, I bet.
No question about it, through the rain part, because
I bet
I kept focus on the trucks around him, the truck himself, to make sure, because of the spray coming through that area was astronomically insane. Keeping him through that, keeping him on the track, and keeping electronics dry, because I was at the farthest point away from the hauler. And I'm thinking, I don't need this radio to go bad or get wet and me lose communication. So I had to focus on keeping dry, keeping him on the track, keeping him clear, and keeping him moving.
I can imagine that would be real difficult.
It was tough.
If things had been dry throughout the entire race, do you think that, well, obviously would have changed? How would it have changed?
It would have definitely changed the overall pace and the mindset, because everybody had the mindset of survive in advance. Let's word it that way. There wasn't any hard racing at all.
Gotcha.
It was just follow the leader, keep yourself clean, and hope it dries up, in which going into stage 3, the rain quit, and then poof, here we go.
Yeah. Then it was on.
But at the end of the day, got to extend my appreciation again to BHR for the opportunity and just even the chance to even go up there and be a part of it, because it was an outstanding time.
So you had a blast.
I had a blast, man.
And we'll say this. There's been some interesting phone calls over the course of the week.
And I'll close it this way. There's a potential for some extremely massive doors to be open.
Looking forward to hearing about that. We've had a great time. Hope you have too. Thank you, Chi-Town Mark, with another informative and fun show. We appreciate that comment very much. We appreciate it. We aim to do it again next week. We'll give you the recap of all of this weekend's racing and prepare you for next weekend with all the news from all of the series that we cover. And we hope you join us then. Until next weekend, stay dry. I don't think staying warm is going to really be your problem, especially if you're in the southern part of the United States.
I'm just now getting dried out from last week.
If you're in the northern part of the country, specifically New England, try and stay dry. And we'll talk to you next weekend right here on the Championship Racing Network.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
WDNG 1450.